What's up, everybody? My name's Taylor Davis. I'm a realtor here with Atlanta Communities. Today we have in Andre Perry with Renasant Bank, mortgage lender. And first things first, we're going to talk about the steps to becoming a homeowner.
Yes.
Now, buying a home for the first time is a big, very exciting step. And to help you with that process, we want to provide you with some tips, a guide, so to make the process, less stressful and more enjoyable for you or you and your family. Number one is going to be determining your down payment. Now, that's going to be the percentage of the sale price or the home price that you are going to be putting down or to provide upfront for the home.
Correct.
And Andre can speak a little bit to that.
Yeah, so basically, as Taylor mentioned, it's a percentage of the sales price. So know what sales price you're going to be at or want to be at, and then you take that percentage of that, and that'll give you the amount of what your down payment's going to be. So with that being said, you just want to make sure that you understand your finances, your assets, how much money that you do have, how much money you can set aside. And what I mean by that, kind of take into consideration the things that you already pay out, maybe you're not thinking of. So say like groceries, subscriptions, your car payment, things like that. And then you account for all of those things into your budget, and then you look at the home that you want and the price point that you want, and make sure that you budget for all of that and that you can make those, be able to afford and move forward with the home size that you want and the sales price that you're looking at.
Perfect. No, I like that.
Yeah.
So we want to determine our down payment, get a realistic view of your monthly expenses,
Sure.
Which I think is very important. I think a lot of folks, we forget to consider, and I know you see this, I see it too, but
Sure.
things like subscriptions, groceries, things that don't necessarily, that don't contribute to your credit report or debt to income ratio per se, but definitely things to think about,
Sure.
especially in the home buying process.
And even so nowadays, I mean, things have changed throughout time, but now you have some of the ones where you can make payments, and I think like your Amazons and some of the other companies that are out there where you can do like the Affirm and Klarna and stuff like that, and you can make payments. You need to take those things into consideration as well, because those are things that and I guess that kind of goes back to subscriptions. Those are things that that we have to account for as well, and monthly payments that you are making.
Yeah. Let's talk a little, number three, or we can talk about is saving a little extra.
Absolutely.
There are some expenses to consider when moving that aren't necessarily, it's not necessarily moving cost. Like I'll hear all the time, we're not going to hire movers. Well, there are still costs associated with that, such as if you're going to do it yourself, U-Haul trucks or family, friends, which usually pizza and beer. Yeah, exactly, pizza and beer. Those things have a cost associated with them, but also important to set aside expenses for when you're buying are going to be things like having a home inspection potentially,
Sure.
Throughout the due diligence process that, we'll touch on another day. But I do think it's important when you are having that conversation with your agent, having that conversation with your lender to set aside expenses so that you're not, using up all of the nest egg, if you will, or all of your funds for the purchase. There are some unexpected or maybe even some unintended costs associated with moving too.
Sure. And a couple of things, I want to touch on that. A couple of things, maybe not so much with the moving side or things that you're preparing for, as far as the move, but you're also going to have to take into consideration what county you're moving in, because taxes are different per each county, so it could either be higher or lower. Also, you're going to have homeowners insurance, so make sure you do your due diligence and find the best price as you're shopping for homeowners insurance, so that can increase or decrease. So just make sure you have a cushion, let's call it that, in your assets, just to make sure you have that extra money to account for the extra things that you're going to encounter.
I love that. So 4, take your time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you want to speak on that? Or?
Sure. So what it's referring to is the home buying process is one of the biggest things you're going to do as far as purchases go in your lifetime. It's a huge purchase. So you want to take your time to make sure you find the right home for you and your family, the right area, the schools if you have children. All of these things you kind of take into account And I know it can be overwhelming at some point and figure out, okay, this house is great, this is the best one. Well, you want to make sure and you do your due diligence and find out which one truly is going to be the best one. And you have that conversation up front between yourself and your family. And then once again, you just take your time. You find the right realtor, you find the right lender, and with that said, we're all in it together with you, and so we're going to try to make the process as smooth as possible, and we're going to go at your pace and answer any questions that you may have along the process.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great answer, great thoughts. In terms of time too, I know I get a question a lot of, is now a good time to buy? Or when is a good time to buy? And the reality is there's no absolute answer or absolute right or wrong time, that goes for everybody. I like to say, look, first things first is sort of what we've talked about, is getting a realistic view of your expenses, down payment, expectations. And look, if everything lines up with your financial goals as well as the goals for you and your family at this time, and home ownership is something that you've strived for and is a big goal of yours and something that is important to you and that you want to accomplish, and it aligns with your financial goals and y'all's family goals at the time, then now's a good time. And if now is that time, then absolutely taking your time throughout that process is crucial. I mean, it can be, or it can seem daunting at times. I mean, some folks do find the home they want in the first weekend. Others it takes a couple months or even more. But having that team around you, being aware of that, while also knowing, because I like to say that there is that light at the end of the tunnel, it is big. So, taking your time, this is a big decision for you and your family or what have you, is crucial at this step for sure.
Sure.
For sure.
That's great.
Great. So I like all of that. And lastly is going to be number 5, know what you need and know what you want. Now, a lot of that falls on the agents, in terms of how you consult with them. And we want to make sure that you have a must-haves list, some things that, you are not willing to, sacrifice or be without. We want to know that too. So having a must-haves when we approach the process makes everyone's job, not necessarily more easier, but we can accomplish it, more productively and, better for you.
Sure. What I can add to that is get with your lender, get a pre-qualification letter, so that way it lets the seller and your realtor know exactly what you're qualified for, and more importantly, lets them know that you are serious. So when you go to that home that you find, once you take your time and you find that home, you go there, and that pre-qualification letter lets that seller know that you are ready to go at any point. So if you guys are able to move forward with the deal, then you are ready to go.
Perfect. Hey, and just like that, you're 5 steps closer to becoming a home buyer or a homeowner.
Sure.
Thank you guys for joining and tuning in, and we'll see you soon for part 2.
Absolutely.